Yeah, in a broader sense, because I think one word you used is crucial, and that is innovation. So there is a goal. You have to bring in innovation in the companies, and that is the common task that company and artists should work on. They should not work on bringing out more art into society. Maybe that will be an outcome, but that's not the goal of it, I think. You have this, the Danish project I was referring to, that goes back to 2004, was called Innovation Alliances. And it was 20 companies, SMVs, I think they were up to 100 maybe, 100 employees. 20 SMEs, 20 artists, and 20 full days of work that could be, applied to these 20 partnerships. And then it was up to the single partnership to define how to use these 20 days. So it was quite specific. And the companies were all very different, and the artists were all very different. But they had to, there were like 5 phases, you will see in the evaluation report as well, that were crucial. But one thing that is crucial is that this organization who facilitated these partnerships, they were called NUX in Danish, but NUX, so a new coalition between artists and companies. So there was, it's very important that you have somebody to build the bridge between companies and artists. This will not happen by itself if you want it to happen on an innovation level, which is a systematic process where you define the goal and you define all the steps to the end goal. So it has to be facilitated somehow. There has to be some kind of organization that will match the companies with the artists, that will select.
Also find the right alliances.
Yes. And find out how do you want to do this? How would you see this process? You can do this in many ways, but you have to give it time, and you have to accept that it needs somebody or some organization to build this bridge between these two worlds. And as you said, a company, the goal of a company is to earn money. It's very simple. And they go straight to the goal, and your boss tells you don't go all the deviations, go straight to the goal and perform. And artists, they do the same. They are very specific. They want to create this art piece, but they do like this, deliberately. All kinds of deviations, but they are also very focused on something specific. So there you have something in common. They're not just consultancies interested in the process. They're interested in creating something, a piece of art. And I think that is something that can create respect in both worlds, that they go for something. But the way they go for it is different. And here I think there is it's an advantage that you bring in an artist instead of a consultant. Because there are prejudices in both worlds about artists and companies. A lot of the companies in this project, they had some kind of, exotic idea about an artist, nearly having magic, abilities sometimes, some kind of power or, access to something that we don't have access to. And they accepted a highly, even if you showed up as an artist dressed in a weird way, that would be, interesting. So, you could play on these prejudices in a positive way from the beginning. It would never work if you as a consultant came out into a company and acting weird and, exotic. No. But an artist has some kind of carte blanche that you should use, I think. And the other way around, maybe artists also see companies as, cool, cold, goal-driven, with no creative soul or whatever in the companies. But, in the beginning, you just use these prejudices. Then after some time, you should get to the point to what we're going to do here together, and then you forget about your weird dress and the way you talk. Yes. But you shouldn't be afraid of I think it could be an advantage in the beginning that we have prejudices. There's a good energy in it. The first thing I think you should do is to, together with the companies, define their challenge. What is the present challenge of our company right now? What are we facing? Not in the future, but right now. Because then you start to getting specific. And that could take some time, and you shouldn't bring in the artists yet, because I think that is some kind of discussion. Maybe your organization, somebody going out to talk and have dialogues with the company should have. Then you should, get a network of artists, and I would suggest that you have artists who already have some kind of experience in this field. Because the artist has to know this is not art. Art is not the first thing here. Innovation is the first thing. So in this case, art is only a means. It's not the goal in itself. And if the artist doesn't understand that, it will never work. So maybe they will create big art, but probably not. It's more the methodologies, the methods that an artist uses. I think that could be the learning, how to do it. And it shows in the evaluation, even though if you had a very highly renowned artist, famous artist, it didn't really matter to the companies. It didn't give them any street cred in the eyes of the company, the management, neither the employees. That was not the important thing. The important thing was to have this common goal on trying to bring in new methods for making our company more agile, more innovative or whatever. And then the means to it is art, because art has, as you say, the ability to take us into unknown territory. And that is what we are looking for. We're looking for doing stuff in a new way, in a different way than we used to. So the more specific you can be, once artist and company have been matched, they will have to find out something very specific to work on. That is, I think, an advantage, and the evaluation shows it. So if the companies, we want to improve our communication, it's not specifically enough. I mean, it's too fluffy. If you really want companies and artists to work together, put them in the same facility. That's very, very simple. And it's the same with innovation. I see a lot of innovation departments, separately for themselves in huge, flashy buildings, and they're all by themselves. And there is no natural way to collaborate, to talk, to meet. People, they talk, and we meet when we're together. After some time, we can't help it. We start talking to one another and, getting inspired with what we do and how we do stuff. So this is the main learning from this house, that it gives you a lot of inspiration to the small startups, having artists around them, seeing what they do, seeing how messy they are, being curious about what are you up to, what are you doing, and the other way around. Artists, asking companies for help for something practical maybe, all kinds of issues. So it's a very simple learning.
Or can we learn something from this process
Yes.
that can be used also in the wider scale?
I think you should never exaggerate, because there is a difference between management and employees. And normally the management is more open. It's also because those were the ones you had the initial dialogue with. Those were the ones who told you about their challenges. Those are the ones who have to take on responsibility for the future of the company. So it's, even though the management says this is a good idea, you cannot be sure that the employees think the same about it. So it's very important that you, of course the management thinks it's a good idea, but that the management is constantly willing to translate why are we doing this, to repeat why are we doing this. We are doing this because our company needs A, B, C, D, and so you constantly have to have the management on board and go out and translate. And there are examples from this New X alliances that even the most weird activities, I remember one, I was skeptical myself, this artist had all employees doing like painting workshop and croquis workshops. But what he did also was to bring in a naked male model and ask all the employees to paint him with a sausage. Everyone was like, oh, come on. This is over the top.
Yeah.
So why? But actually what happened is very interesting, and I'm not saying it justifies it or not, but what happened is that the management said, oh, this is interesting. We are doing this because, it's the same as when we say that, and we think that this will promote this kind of attitude, this thinking out of whatever. He did a great job because he actually took it serious to translate. But I think having defined a specific goal is keeping them in line somehow. It's the opposite of letting them be out in the open. And that's what I'm saying. Don't keep them hanging in the open. Give them, make a goal for the company that you will work on together, artist and company. And then, and then I think, and then if the management can constantly recap and say, okay, we came so far, we have to go this way, and we came so far now, and so far we learned this and that. This was difficult, this was nice, whatever, and constantly have in mind and point at the goal that we defined together in the beginning. They were very different, and it didn't really matter what kind of artist you matched with what kind of company. The evaluation shows it didn't really matter. If you can find artists with experiences from partnerships similar to this, or they may be used to use art as a means in therapy, in pedagogy, in all different kinds of fields, and they will accept that the goal is not art. The goal is innovation and the specific goal that we will define together. I think that would be an advantage. And as I said, the company didn't really care about if the result was very artistic and something you would put in a gallery. That didn't really matter to them. What mattered was the process and the new methodologies that they took on. One thing that was also very successful, the artists that chose to base themselves in the company more or less during the collaboration. So if you were a painter, you would set up your atelier in the company, and just the fact that you were there in the open painting, maybe not even working on the specific goal that you agreed on, but just being there and having people ask you, what are you up to, and chit chat.
So we are back to the space again.
Yes, that was a crucial success criteria. The writer nearly lived in this company he was in, and just asking people to tell stories.